Welcome back. Chapter 11, we're talking about personality. So, we use that term often, right? I really like their personality, or I really don't like their personality when you get to meet someone, right? It's part of who they are, part of how they present themselves to you, their character traits. So, how do psychologists identify personality traits, right? So studies of personality in adulthood are based on theories that attempt to define the nature and the structure of the personality. So what is the personality exactly? Well, according to the American Psychological Association, personality refers to individual differences in characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving, right? So it's how we interact with the world around us, how we interact with people around us in our lives, how we perceive the world around us, how we interpret the world around us, and how we react based upon those interpretations. So personality is a pretty ingrained characteristic. It's typically viewed as a lifelong, enduring characteristic, something that's not changed much. You know, we may change our thoughts about things, our opinions about things, experiences certainly may change the way we think and feel about certain things, but the way we perceive and respond to the world around us is pretty ingrained, right? And our genes heavily influence us, right? Our genes influence our personality in lots of ways. Genetic factors can influence how rigid or how flexible we are about thinking about the ways of religion, politics, right? How we're raised. We might be raised in a very religious home, or maybe not so much at all. Maybe politics is a very strong point in your family, something that people are very passionate about, right? So where you come from, who you are, what's passed down to you certainly can have an effect on your personality. And research has also shown that there are small differences in the personalities of men versus women. However, those are typically largely absent during childhood and don't emerge until about adolescence, right? So that's when you really see who a person is. Their personality is really emerging through adolescence, suggesting that maybe part of our personality is learned based on cultural experiences. You know, the way we raise boys versus the way we raise girls in our culture. So we got to ask ourselves, how much of our personalities are based upon the way we're raised? Social psychology, right? So I know a lot of you have heard about Sigmund Freud, and he is the father of unconsciousness, right? He's the one that basically discovered the unconscious mind. And when we think about Sigmund Freud, we often think about terms like id, ego, and superego. So just a quick summarization of those. Id is typically your like instinctual impulses, like I need this and I need it now. I don't care how I get it. It's immediate gratification. So infants, right, display this. Infants will cry right away if they don't get what they need. They want something now. They're hungry now. They need to be fed now. They're cold now. They've wet their diaper and they need it to be changed now. They need their needs to be met immediately. Okay, when we move into ego, that brings more of the, the sense of consciousness and social consciousness into it. Like, yes, I want my needs met now, but how can I do that in a more socially acceptable way? I'm angry and I want to punch something, but instead of doing that, let me go out and go for a run. Let me get into boxing or maybe football, something that can release that aggression and energy, but in a more socially acceptable manner. As far as superego goes, that's when our morals come into play, right? So yes, I want my needs met. I want to do it in a socially acceptable way, but I also want to take into consideration how it might affect other people, how it might affect my loved ones. I want to do it in a way that is socially conscious and morally and ethically right for me and those that I love, right? And for society as a whole. So right, personality has a lot to do with the way we think and perceive, right? The way we interact with the world. And decades of research have actually shown that growing up in a distressed neighborhood is associated with worse educational, occupational, and health outcomes. And that can certainly have an effect on the way we're raised, the resources we're given, and the way our personality is thus structured. Humanistic psychologists would suggest that people in those settings must struggle to meet their basic needs on a daily basis and don't have necessarily the opportunity to recognize self-actualization. So, in a nutshell, personality is ingrained, lifelong. We learn it and it's developed at a very early age. It's the way we interact with the world around us and perceive things. It has a lot to do with our internal self, our conscious and subconscious mind. So get reading, look at the videos, get on the discussion board, and I will see you next time for chapter 12.